At exactly 5:23 p.m. local time, a U.S. Air Force F-16 from the 421st Fighter Squadron was flying a top-cover mission for a U.S. Navy task force as it moved steadily along the Yemeni coastline. The skies had been calm, the patrol uneventful, but that calm was about to shatter. Unbeknownst to the pilot, a surface-to-air missile battery operated by Houthi forces near Al-Hudaydah had already locked onto the aircraft. Moments later, a missile was launched. A Soviet-era SA-6, gainful, still deadly despite its age. The SA-6 is no relic. With a top speed nearing Mach 2.8 and a maximum effective range of roughly 24 kilometers, it remains a significant threat to low and mid-altitude aircraft. The pilot now had only seconds to react. Fortunately, the F-16 isn't defenseless. Outfitted with an array of electronic countermeasures and threat detection systems, it's built for survival in hostile skies. While the aircraft's ANAPG-83A ESA radar plays a key role in situational awareness, it's the onboard radar warning receiver that first alerts the pilot to the missile radar lock. With that warning flashing, the pilot springs into action. Initiating a steep, high-speed dive, the aircraft drops from 30,000 feet to 15,000 feet in seconds, a maneuver designed to break the tracking solution and complicate the missile's guidance. At the same time, the F-16 deploys countermeasures and activates jamming systems to degrade the missile's ability to home in. The SA-6 uses semi-active radar homing. This means it doesn't guide itself independently. Instead, it depends on radar signals emitted from the ground that bounce off the target aircraft. As long as the enemy radar can illuminate the F-16, the missile can follow that reflection. Disrupting that signal is key to survival. As the missile closes in, it loses lock, blinded by electronic interference, and thrown off by the jet's rapid maneuvering. Without its guiding radar beam, the SA-6 continues on a flawed trajectory before detonating harmlessly at a safe distance. Crisis averted. The pilot steadies the aircraft, systems returning to normal. What began as a routine patrol had turned into a high-speed chess match between old threats and modern defenses, one the F-16 was built to win. In a desperate bid to break the missile lock, the pilot pushed the F-16 into a steep dive, aiming to disrupt the SA-6's fire control solution. But the move, though critical, wasn't enough to shake the missile's guidance. The enemy's radar system was designed to track targets with a radar cross-section as small as 5 square meters, perfect for fighter aircraft like the F-16. And with an impressive maximum range of 470 kilometers, it could spot multiple incoming threats in the blink of an eye. As the pilot leveled out, the radar continued to track not just one, but several SA-6 missiles now in the air. With only 18 seconds left to react, the pilot executed evasive maneuvers, sharp turns, rapid climbs, trying to shake off the incoming barrage. But every erratic move was a double-edged sword. While it made targeting more difficult, it also hindered the F-16's own radar's ability to maintain a clear picture of the airspace around it. The radar can track up to 20 targets simultaneously, but when targets are at an angle 60 degrees off bore sight, tracking effectiveness drops dramatically to just 47%. In short, the F-16 was quickly becoming blind to some of the missiles closing in fast. That's when the F-16's next line of defense kicked in. Each wing of the aircraft is equipped with a Thermopylon integrated dispensing system, PIDS, a crucial piece of technology designed to break the chain of missile pursuit. Weighing just 19 kilograms per unit and reducing the aircraft's payload by 3%, it's a small price to pay for the protection it offers. Each PIDS is outfitted with 6 Henst AR-60V2 ultraviolet sensors that provide a 360-degree spherical coverage capable of detecting detecting missile launches from as far as 10 kilometers away. When the system detects a missile in flight, it triggers the release of infrared flares and radio frequency RF chaff bundles. The PIDs deployed 12 MJU-50B flares and 24 RR-180 chaff bundles, creating a half-kilometer wide decoy cloud of infrared and RF signals. The F-16's countermeasure suite had just turned the tide. As the SA-6 missiles homed in on the decoy cloud, their guidance systems were confused, disrupted, and ultimately rendered ineffective. The F-16 had dodged yet another deadly threat, thanks to the combination of speed, skill, and technology. But the evasive maneuvers and countermeasures weren't enough. The incoming missiles maintained their lock, closing in fast. The pilot had one last option, the AML-Q-184 jamming pod, mounted on the belly of the F-16. This pod was no ordinary piece of technology. It could jam threats across the 2 to 20 gigahertz range, utilizing digital RF memory technology to create an impenetrable barrier of noise and confusion, more than capable of countering the 6 to 8 gigahertz fire control radar of the SA-6. The moment the pilot engaged the jamming pod, the connection between the incoming missiles and the Houthi ground control site was severed. Suddenly, the missiles lost their lock. Their accuracy dropped by 70%, forcing them off course and into a ballistic trajectory. One by one, they flew harmlessly past the F-16. The threat neutralized for the moment, but the Houthis weren't finished yet. Just 44 minutes later, at 6:07 p.m. local time, a US MQ-9 Reaper drone operating out of Chabeli Airfield in Djibouti was conducting a routine reconnaissance mission over Houthi-controlled territory, about 50 miles northeast of Al Hudaydah. The drone was tasked with monitoring Houthi supply convoys moving to reinforce enemy positions near the town. Frustrated by their failure to bring down the F-16, Houthi gunners turned their attention to the Reaper. Less advanced than the F-16, but no less important, the Reaper was equipped with its own Pandora missile warning system, which quickly detected the launch of another SA-6 missile. Within 8 seconds of the detection, the Reaper's countermeasure system sprang into action. The drone's AN/ALQ-47 dispenser launched a salvo of flares, while the drone climbed to 15,000 feet, positioning itself to avoid the missile's most likely flight path. In a matter of seconds, 8 flares erupted into the sky, creating a massive decoy. As the Reaper continued its ascent, a 300 square meter chaff cloud erupted around it, adding another layer of confusion for the incoming missiles. The threat was now diffused. Another missile salvo neutralized, thanks to rapid detection and countermeasures. The Reaper's countermeasures, though effective, are not infinite. With a maximum load of 60 MJU-60B flares and 120 RR-180 chaff bundles, the drone can handle 12 missile engagements per sortie. But once it burns through 75% of its countermeasures, the Reaper has no choice but to abort and return to base, its mission compromised. So, how does the operator know when to unleash these life-saving defenses? Enter the ALR-69 radar warning receiver. This system, which scans the radar spectrum from 0.5 to 20 gigahertz, allows the Reaper to detect SA-6 radar emissions at an impressive 200 kilometers, with pinpoint 1-degree azimuth accuracy. The moment a missile launch is detected, the Reaper's systems respond in just 2 seconds, a blink of an eye in modern warfare. With this level of precision, the drone operators can deploy flares and chaff in the nick of time, creating a decoy cloud that sends incoming missiles off course, sparing the Reaper from a direct hit. But even with these countermeasures, the Reaper didn't leave the battlefield unscathed. Upon landing, maintainers discovered that several of the SA-6's 12,000 steel pellets had punctured the drone's right wing. But the Reaper, ever resilient, was back in action quickly. quickly, ready for whatever came next. While this missile engagement might seem like another routine military operation, it was anything but. For the first time, the Houthis had targeted a manned US aircraft, an act that would forever alter the course of the conflict. How would the US respond to such a brazen and unprovoked attack? The ramifications of this daylight strike would set a new standard for how the war was fought. In the aftermath, both US Central Command and the White House were shocked by the audacity of this direct assault on US forces. President Trump, furious and resolute, made his decision fast. A swift, devastating response was necessary. Just 8 hours later, the USS Spruance, a guided missile destroyer, was ordered to close in on the Yemeni coast. Once in position, the crew received encrypted launch orders from Central Command. The strike was imminent. Typically, Tomahawk missiles would be the go-to for such a mission, but in a bold twist, the Navy chose a different weapon. Every DDG, destroyer-guided missile ship, carries a diverse array of missile types in its vertical launch system, VLS, Tomahawks, SM-2s, ESSM, anti-submarine rockets, and SM-6 missiles. Ships with ballistic missile defense, BMD capabilities even carry the SM-3. This diverse arsenal allows a surface ship to tackle virtually any threat, whether offensive or defensive. But here's where it gets interesting. The Navy chose the SM-6, a missile typically reserved for the most dangerous aerial threats. Why the SM-6? It's one of the US Navy's most advanced air defense systems, second only to the SM-3. Designed to intercept hostile aircraft or missiles, the SM-6 delivers a 1,500 kilogram warhead at a blistering speed of Mach 3.5, making it both incredibly fast and incredibly lethal. But the real kicker here is that in recent years, the Navy has repurposed the SM-6 for ground strikes. The decision to launch an SM-6 wasn't just a military tactic, it was a statement, a message, clear and loud. The US will not tolerate these attacks. The Tomahawk missile has a longer range than the SM-6, capable of reaching around 1,500 miles, but in terms of speed, the SM-6 has a clear advantage. Mach 3.5 makes it incredibly fast, much harder to shoot down, and its speed is crucial as a stopgap until the Navy strike missile comes fully online. This speed also made it a prime candidate for modification. The Navy adapted the SM-6 to operate in surface strike mode. Despite having this capability for years, the Navy had never publicly used the SM-6 in this role until now. Why was this the right choice? Because the target was moving. Satellite imagery confirmed that the SA-6 launcher and its IS-91 radar were still stationed in Houthi, but with the launcher's maximum speed of around 34 miles per hour, it could easily be hundreds of miles away by the time the strike order was issued. Time was of the essence. There was no room for error. After receiving the firing order from CENTCOM, the Spruance crew made best speed towards the launch basket in the southern Red Sea. Meanwhile, the Combat Watch standers were up against the clock. They had less than 30 minutes to create, route, and approve a detailed firing plan, and planning a missile strike is no simple task. A missile doesn't just fly in a straight line. If it did, it would be easy to shoot down. The crew had to prepare a series of waypoints, sometimes dozens, guiding the missile on its journey. The missile's path would be altered at each waypoint until it reached the final one, where the classified mission library would take over, guiding it with pinpoint precision towards its target. At 3:45 a.m. local time, with a flash of light, two SM-6s shot out of the VLS cells. 6 minutes. That's all it took for them to travel several hundred miles to their target. Despite the Houthi air defense network, the SM-6 glided effortlessly, unchallenged, before smashing into the SA-6 launcher. In the aftermath of the attack, signals collection intercepts confirmed the site's destruction, and 8 Houthi operators were eliminated. But the US military was far from done. run. From 2014 to 2015, the Houthis managed to capture 12 to 15 SA-6 launchers from the Yemeni government. With substantial help from Iran, who upgraded their radars and installed modern seekers on the missiles, the Houthis quickly turned these into a formidable force. Over the past decade, they've stockpiled these weapons and, more importantly, demonstrated an eagerness to use them against US aircraft. This couldn't be allowed to continue after the February 20th strike that took out the individual SA-6 launcher. The Navy decided it was time to send a message, a permanent reminder to the Houthis of why attacking US aircraft was a very bad idea. At 6 p.m. local time, the first of 4 waves of FY-18s took off from the deck of the USS Harry S. Truman, but this wasn't a routine strike mission. These planes were armed with something far more powerful than your standard payload. In typical missions like this, you'd expect to see a 2,000-pound JDAM or a bunker buster bomb, but the Navy went all out this time. The FA-18S that soared into the skies that night were carrying AGM-154 Joint Standoff Weapons JSOWs. The AGM-154 is a long-range air-to-surface missile capable of striking targets up to 117 to 130 kilometers when launched from high altitudes. Whether it carries 145 bomblets or 192 pounds of explosives, the JSOW is a GPS-guided beast. And on this night, it became the long arm of justice in this region. From 6 p.m. to 11:30 p.m., wave after wave of FA-18s dove in on storage bunkers near Sana, dropping JSOWs and obliterating the enemy's positions. But the Navy didn't stop there. After the airstrikes had cleared the battlefield, the USS Gravely, a guided missile destroyer, launched 6 Tomahawk missiles at the still smoking rubble, just to be sure. When the dust settled, the US had successfully destroyed 14 Kaher M2 ballistic missiles, 3 more SA-6 launchers, and 23 other anti-ship cruise missiles. This strike severely degraded the Houthis' ability to launch coordinated attacks on both air and ground targets. But despite the scale of the assault, the operation didn't wipe out all of the Houthis' arsenal. No, that task is still waiting for another day's fight. So the question remains, could the US be doing more to cripple the Houthi war machine? For now, we'll have to wait and see.